Hi, this is Sarit Switzer, and welcome to the It Is Taught podcast, a podcast devoted to the teachings of Rabbi Schneur Zalman of Liadi as recorded in his most famous work, the Tanya. My hope for this show is to make these teachings accessible and relatable to the average person, regardless of prior Jewish education or affiliation. The episodes follow the prescribed daily study portions and are meant to serve as practical lessons in how to live your life as your true self and develop an authentic and powerful relationship with your Creator. I have personally experienced the effects the study of this work has had on me, and I'm excited to share what I can of this knowledge with you. So please join me on this journey of learning, self-growth, and connection with your source. Hi, and welcome to the It Is Taught podcast. This is episode 682 for the 20th of Tishrei in a regular year. So as an introvert, it's often very tempting for me to kind of just hide away, do my own thing, serve God in my own way without having to bother with people, with community, with anything like that. However, Judaism doesn't really work like that, right? Judaism is really very much a community religion. This is especially true for men who, even more than women, are really asked to go to shul, ideally 3 times a day, and daven and pray with a minyan, with a quorum of 10 men. We know that inherent within Judaism, there's just so much about community. When we say a blessing, for example, when we say a bracha, there's something very special about somebody answering amen to the bracha. So that person that answers amen actually gives vitality to that bracha. It elevates the bracha to a new height. And if nobody's there to say that amen, then the bracha kind of it definitely still has that effect, but it doesn't have the same power as it would have if there would be that effect. We know that there's the idea of the Birkas Kohanim, the special blessing that the Kohanim say, and we receive that blessing from the Kohanim. And so once again, it's like there's this dependency on the other, this dependency on the Kohanim, the dependency on the congregation to receive the blessing of the Kohanim. So we know that throughout Judaism, there really is this communal thing at play. And we're going to be learning a little bit about this today, specifically in regards to the power of 10 Jews who sit together to learn Torah. So it's not even about prayer. It's not even about 10 Jews coming together in a minyan in order to pray. This is 10 Jews who specifically are just coming to sit and learn Torah. And what happens when and the power of these 10 Jews coming and sitting together is that they're able to draw down the Schina, draw down the divine presence to rest amongst them. And we're going to contrast this with the study of an individual. So because we know that even an individual who sits and studies Torah by themselves, we know that God rests with them. So it's like, when you're learning Torah, even by yourself in your own room and nobody else is around, definitely God is there with you. But nevertheless, there is a certain power that is unique to 10 people studying together that only that group of 10 can accomplish. So it's pretty straightforward today. So we're beginning a new epistle. This is epistle 23 of Iggeres HaKodesh. And so here we go in the Alter Rebbe's words. So the Alter Rebbe begins with a teaching of the sages, who he poetically calls the wakeful angels, because they were so holy, these sages. So he refers to them as angels, and he says these are the sages of the Mishnah, who may peace be upon them. So they taught in the Mishnah, and this is a teaching from Pirkei Avos, chapter 3, verse 6. That 10 people that sit and learn Torah, the Schina dwells amongst them. And then the Alter Rebbe continues and brings a citation from Echa, chapter 12, verse 13, Ki zeh chol ha'adam. And this is the whole purpose of man. So meaning not only is it, the Alter Rebbe is teaching us that when 10 people come and sit together and learn Torah, then the Schina rests amongst them. This is in fact our whole entire purpose to do this, to draw down the Schina in this way. And not only this, says the Alter Rebbe, he says that the whole purpose of the soul's descent to this world is for the purpose of this ascent that happens during this Torah study with 10 people, and there's no ascent, there's no elevation that's higher than this type of ascent. How so? Because the Schina, this divine indwelling, is in the highest of the heights, the greatness of which, the Alter Rebbe says, and he brings a citation here to describe this from Malachim Aleph, chapter 8, verse 27, Hashamayim u'shma Hashamayim lo yichalkelu. The heavens and the heavens of the heavens cannot contain. So basically, the Alter Rebbe is just describing the greatness of the Schina and how high and lofty it is. And so for this Schina to then come and dwell and become greater within the Jewish people, as it says, and this is a citation from Bamidbar, chapter 35, verse 34, Ki ani Hashem shochen betoch bnei Israel, that I, God, dwell amongst the children of Israel. So this is our whole purpose, to bring the Schina down here into this world. And the way that we do this is through being involved in Torah and in doing mitzvahs, specifically with 10 people. As it says, and this is from the Gemara in Brachos, page 21b, Atia toch toch chule. We infer a conclusion from two appearances of the word toch. So what this is a reference to is the word toch. Toch literally means within. And often, but like Hebrew is an interesting language, that often one word can have multiple meanings to it. So sometimes there's a principle in Torah that, like, in order to really understand the deeper meaning of a certain word, we can find different places that this word is found and look at how it's used, the context of how it's used, and through that we can infer the deeper meaning of that word. So in this case here, the Gemara is referencing two places where the word toch is used. The first one is taken from Vayikra, chapter 22, verse 32, where it describes God being sanctified amongst the children of Israel, within the children of Israel. So that's like that standard version of the within, the toch, right? It says, "V'nitkadashti b'toch b'nei Yisrael, ani Hashem mekadshechem," and I shall be sanctified amongst the children of Israel. I am the Lord who sanctified you. Okay, now the second reference to this word toch that we're going to kind of see where the 10 people comes about is in Bamidbar chapter 16 verse 21, where we see the whole story of the spies and Moshe dealing with the spies and God telling Moshe to dissociate from the congregation. And the congregation was specifically 10 spies. And the way that it's described, the way that Moshe should dissociate himself from within the congregation is again using that word toch. It says, Hibadlu mitoch hayda hazot ve'achale otam kerega. That disassociate yourselves from this congregation, I will consume them in an instant. So the point that the Gemara brings out, that the Alter Rebbe is citing here, is this idea that there's a connection in that word toch between the word like within, like the dwelling within, and 10, the number 10 people, which is where we learn out this idea that it's specifically when you have 10 people that the Schina dwells. And then the Alter Rebbe brings another citation here from Hosea, chapter 11, verse 9, where it says, B'kirbecha kadosh, that the Holy One is within you. So it's this allusion to this idea that specifically through bringing 10 people together, that God can dwell within them, within each person in an internalized way. And now the Alter Rebbe brings a teaching from the Gemara in Masechet Brachos, page 21b, to support this whole idea, where it teaches En davar shebekdusha b'fachot me'asara, that anytime a congregation recites holy words, like there's certain holy texts that can only be said with a quorum, that can only be said with 10 people. Okay, so now the Alter Rebbe is going to say, with all of this in mind, we can now understand why it is that we find in Pirkei Avos, there's a teaching there where there's a whole discussion where it talks about this whole idea of the Schina dwelling amongst Jews studying Torah. And it talks about initially that there's 10 and that 10 are needed. And then it says, okay, but what about, but even if there's 5, then the Schina can still dwell. And even if there's 2, and then it says even 1, right? And so then and then Pirkei Avos needs to bring, the Mishnah needs to bring proof of this, scriptural proof for this idea that the Schina will dwell even with one person sitting and studying Torah, because this is not a simple thing, because we've already learned that the basic idea is that you actually need 10 people. And then the Alter Rebbe goes on to say that actually they were, even the scriptural proof that they were able to find was actually not even about the indwelling of the Schina, but it was actually just in regard to reward itself, that each individual will get a reward proportionate to themselves, even if they're studying just by themselves. And if it's a group of people that's less than 10, then they will all receive reward in proportion to them as well, in proportion to the number of people. So it's actually, meaning in Pirkei Avos, when it talks about this idea of the Schina dwelling within less than 10 people, the Alter Rebbe is saying that this is in regards to just the reward that's received. It's not the actual indwelling of the Schina. So when it comes to the reward, then yes, the individual, there's like a likeness to what the individual who's learning Torah receives compared to the congregation. However, when it comes to the actual indwelling of the Schina itself, the actual dwelling of the Schina down here, there is no comparison between what the individual is able to do on his own versus with 10 people together. And then the Alter Rebbe concludes by saying that the difference between the indwelling of the Schina and reward is understood to discerning thinkers. So that's the end of the section for today, and we're going to continue along these lines tomorrow when we discuss this difference between the receiving of reward by an individual versus the indwelling of the Schina and what that's about. But for now, just to kind of recap what we've learned today, the main message is the importance of a congregation, why it is not good to just live on an island. We don't live on an island, and Judaism really is a communal religion, and there is something powerful about joining forces. It's like, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts kind of idea. So that is it, and we will continue tomorrow, and I will speak to you then. Thanks for listening to the It Is Taught podcast, hosted by Sarit Switzer. This podcast is dedicated in loving memory of my maternal grandfather, Avraham Yitzchak ben Binyamin HaKohen of blessed memory. Music by Shina. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to support the show, please share it with others and subscribe on YouTube, Apple iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And make sure to leave us a 5-star review. To find out more about the It Is Taught project, including more information on my soon-to-be published book, please visit our website, itistaught.com. To catch the latest from me, follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Looking forward to speaking with you tomorrow, and until then, have a great day.